Hello everybody and welcome back to a beautiful Sunday here in West Man for the traditional full look at everything growing on in the gardens. I'm kind of excited by a few things that are going on. I got around to weeding the corn, you'll see that in a minute. Actually looks pretty nice without all the unintentionals in the bottom of it. And of course those bunker tomatoes, very exciting. Yeah, lots to see today. Pause this, get yourself a beverage, and let's get on it. We haven't taken a look at the gooseberry in quite some time. Frankly, it doesn't show up very well in my opinion, but this year we do have a few more fruit than last year. They do seem to be a little bit bigger, a little bit juicier. So that is good. It's definitely grown a fair bit. Lassie. And we've got a few places that are sending off some new shoots. So if I do any cloning experiments this fall, at least I know I've got some new growth to try that with. And I'll probably try that with some of this woodier stuff as well. See what works, what doesn't. Definitely gonna want to have more of these for long-term future plans. It's a good little berry. Can't wait till some of these take color. Kind of vicious, these little spikes on there though. Found Cape gooseberry, product of Colombia, I think it said, at the local grocery store. And they're, at least 3 times the size of these things, bright yellow, quite tasty. I'm going to try and give those a grow, tons of seeds in there. Never know if these things will work or not, but always got to try. Nature of the beast with gardening, isn't it? Just on the other side of that tree, we've got the smoky Saskatoon berry bush that we brought with us from Penticton. This poor thing spends an awful lot of time in the shade, and Shocks and I have recently discussed moving it up front so it can be with those monster Saskatoon berries and hopefully be somewhat inspired. I think this is probably a good idea. Gets more sunlight there in general, so can become part of the Saskatoon berry fence. That's just fine by me. Lassie in the background, giving me the stink eye even though he's off the leash in the sunny spot in the yard. Completely unrestrained. How dare I offend his sensibilities somehow. Anyway, that Saskatoon berry has done quite well, and if I'm gonna move it, I'd better do it soon, or I think it's just gonna be too big. Too big to move safely. Here we have the bag of squash, which is, as always, at midday, desperately in need of some water. This would look better in the morning, and one of these days I will have to get around to filming in the morning, but here we can see the acorn squash, and it looks very much like the beginning of a squash there, or at least potentially the beginning of one. So that is fabulous. I do rather enjoy acorn squash. And I guess this would be the pumpkin. Not seeing a whole lot going on in there. Definitely got lots of flowers, but I don't see anything that looks like a mini gourd of any kind, let alone a baby pumpkin. And that would make this nice long vine, or spaghetti squash. Now I thought I saw something on here the other day that was very exciting and slightly spaghetti squash looking in nature, but I can't seem to find it on this particular angle. So, carrying on. So while we're looking at things in those fabric planters, I'm still thinking a zucchini might have been a better bet than 4 different squash plants, but I did move that third tomato back here. It is also elevated off the ground so its roots don't grow down and in. And you'll notice 4 empty stumps. The 4 3-gallon planters fit pretty darn well into this ice fishing sled, and they have consumed at least 4 inches of water since I put them in there. So it seems to me this is a fantastic way to do a nice deep watering on those. So then I can just come bring a huge jug of rainwater over, pour it into the overall sled. They can suck it up over, an hour or 2, and I can pop them back onto their logs. So that's working well. The sage certainly seems pretty happy. The rosemary, parsley, heck, even the Nepalese bell down there looks pretty happy. Now, these peppers in the ground here, I thought this post hole gardening thing would be an interesting experiment, and I wasn't wrong. It is it's definitely interesting to watch this kind of evolve. But I think it's more of an option for tomatoes than it is for peppers. Peppers don't really need that same kind of space up here in the Canadian growing climate. So I think they'll be better off if I just put them into containers next year. Probably going to get a few of those fabric planters because they do seem to be pretty handy. And I have got lots of trees to bring down, which means I got lots of logs to set them on. So whatever I learn this year can be carried forward into next year's garden. Speaking of prepping for next year's garden, this radish and thistle bed has gone a little far. Kind of toying with the idea of just bringing the riding mower right over this thing, taking a look at what's left underneath there, seeing if there's any radish bulbs at all. I think I've got 3 things of seeds, $1.50 each if I recall. So $4.50 worth of radishes is kind of the ideal goal from this. I'm not sure I see that happening, but that's still kind of what I'm hoping for. And the carrots are a little more visible this week, eh? Look at that. They're not doing too bad. They're spaced out fairly well. And I pulled one of these up earlier just to kind of get some idea of what their roots are looking like. And this is a tiny little carrot, but it's very early in the season. So they've got lots of time to grow. Pretty sure these aren't really supposed to be harvested until like fall. Just after the first light frost or something specific and silly like that. Yeah, so guess who finally got around to weeding the pea and corn patch? Yeah, Mr. Bear did. Mr. Bear did, it's true. Not quite as many peas left in this as I thought there were, but the corn looks pretty darn good to me. Standing beside it here, well, halfway between my knee and my waist there, so average is at least at my knee. So that's not bad. What's that expression? Knee high by July. With the weeding done, we can kind of see that tomato, a volunteer tomato at that, in the middle. We've also got this one on the outside, which I'm starting to think more seriously about keeping, since it's kind of away from all the corn. And that one, well, it's in the middle of it all. I don't even know how much light it's going to get. So we might just let them both live, fight it out, see who wins. Either way, I win. So, perfect. Up in the bunker here, I have not yet suckered these tomatoes, but I did give everything a real deep watering yesterday. So it almost looks like it's grown since yesterday's update. Kind of wouldn't be surprised. These things are monsters. And because the straw at the bottom of this hasn't really decomposed all that well, it seems to be holding a lot of moisture. Like, it's kind of nasty when you put your hand in it. But when you're putting roots into it, apparently they don't mind. Look at those. Oh, that's beautiful. I was showing Shocks that image, mentioning that's just about the right size for fried green tomatoes, and she's like, so that's promising. Spicy fried green tomatoes, anyone? Oh, nice looking cluster in there. I do want to go through here and, well, provide a little breathing room. We get lots of wind. It would be nice for the air to move in the middle of these plants. I am going to take off a couple of suckers, at least from this Better Boy hybrid here, and I'll just transfer them over. They'll probably live. Tomatoes are pretty resilient. And this does seem like a fairly healthy garden environment. Given the opportunity, anything will grow, right? So, yeah. It's growing this collection of indigenous plants quite well. Up in the front of it, though, we've got lonely little sage. Its companion already passed away. Shocks hasn't quite yet come to claim this for her front fairy garden, but I'm assured that is coming soon. The ahi, I believe this is the pineapple. Not the happiest pepper in the bunch, but still alive, so I'll give credit where it's due. And shadow. With this one here, I'm still definitely leaning towards some sort of eggplant. Pretty sure it's lamb's quarter beside it. And then now this has become kind of a wild bean experiment, hasn't it? Yes, can you even find the yellow beans? I can, but it took me like probably 10 minutes when I started looking to go, where are the bean leaves? Where are they? It's like a Where's Waldo thing. But here we have the burgundy beans. It's kind of flopped over a little bit from where it started. Might be some sort of flower setting in there. My guess is we have a similar situation in here with the yellow beans. And I would be right. There are some starting in there. So I may still get something out of this bean experience, and I probably should whack down a whole lot of these weeds, use them to fill up my pit there and start a new pit for next year. Or, I don't know, just keep digging, start a pit and call it a swimming pool. I don't know. Oh, I don't know. Up here we've got the leftovers bed with some of the nicest Brussels sprouts I have ever personally grown. The spacing seems to have worked out really well. Well, I was kind of thinking that having the shard amongst all of these cabbages was help deterring them a little bit. I did just chase away one of those buggeredly little cabbage moths, cabbage butterflies, whatever you prefer to call it. Here we've got the one early Copenhagen cabbage that sprouted from my downstairs sprouts. It is definitely much more advanced in its formation than the other cabbages around here, so I may have to plant those again in the future. I believe this is the straight 8 cucumber, and it's another one there. Oh, see, if you look really carefully, you can just begin to see the beginning of a cucumber. So that is wonderful. Here we have the so-called black zucchini, and as I look into it now, I see a few things that may turn into zucchini fruit, but I don't know. So hard to tell in the early stages. Just gonna have to wait that out. A little tiny rhubarb is certainly doing much better this year. I mean, easily still the smallest rhubarb in the neighborhood, but when you consider this is, I think, year 2, maybe year 3 for this poor little thing. When we found it, it was clearly just a seedling. Transplanted it twice already in its poor little struggle of a life. Look at it grow. I'm impressed. I think we can safely skip most of the tomato grove today, having just gone over that yesterday. But you'll notice I did spread out the tomatoes again, so it's kind of more in line with everything. Been cleaning up a lot of those branch piles. Things are looking a little bit better there. Can almost use this area here that I call the second driveway again. Nice little step-up log going on there. Have not yet brought up asparagus or found any of the other seed packages for that matter. But we're still going to plant this thing out when that does happen. So that'll be good. All things in time, I suppose. Now, this does not look good. I mean, I know it was really warm the other day. Yesterday in particular was kind of a cooker. But I gave this a nice deep watering. I was kind of hoping it would come back. Gosh, there are so many tomatoes on here. I hope this thing didn't die off. That would be rough. Oh well, good thing it's not the only tomato in the property. Starting to get a little bit more color on the currants, but unfortunately the birdies are finding them first. Nice juicy little berries though. Might be worth it to net this up one of these years. Still fairly small. Birds can't be too dependent on it yet. Here you can see that little zucchini in an urn. This is definitely one of the things that I am thinking I should have planted into one of the fabric planters, and I probably will give that a try next year. I know there are a few herbs that I intend to bring in and carry forward, but look how well that's doing. That's doing pretty nice. A little concerned about that one there. Quite concerned about that one in the back because its flower fell off, but it still seems to be okay. So we're just gonna have to wait it out on that. I have such a limited amount of zucchini experience. But that's why you always keep growing new things, right? You keep learning and learning and learning. Eventually some of it's gonna stick. At least that's what I tell myself to try and get through these random garden learning moments, you know? So yes, let's take a look at what's growing up along the front of the house and along the driveway, and then I guess that pretty much wraps it up aside from the basement. So yes, carrying on. Hidden amongst its assorted weed friends, we can see lots of little peppers on this red demon. Very exciting. Seems to be setting fairly well. I don't often get up here with a watering can, so it's kind of on its own. Its roots are responsible for its water. But we can see this one here split a couple of times. Again, the purpling is very evident. Some nice open flowers. Definitely got to come through here, get rid of the unintentionals. That all seem to be kind of growing up in the area where I pour the water. Amazing how that works. Did, however, get up and get rid of some of them here. Since this plant is so tiny to begin with, they were definitely competition. But the matchbox now looks like a very, very happy little pepper. So quite excited to see what that's going to produce. So, sliding along here to the cabbage, kale, and chard. This is another shining example of why I should do these updates in the morning. This looks so much prettier without the midday heat. I assure you, as you know, the vampire mosquitoes come out, and it's basically too dark to film, this perk right back up. But let's just look at the size of some of these chard leaves. That is insane. My hand just disappears in this thing. My foot would disappear in that thing. It's awesome. So clearly this was a good location for all of these leafy greens. And while I see another one of those stupid cabbage moths here right now, hiding in my shadow, the actual cabbages don't seem to have suffered too much yet. So I'm going to try and whack that thing and take a look at a few peppers. Once again, chasing a robin out of the Saskatoon berry bush. We harvested 2 liters, which weighed up as basically 2 kilograms yesterday. And I turned a chunk of those into spicy Saskatoon berry tarts. There's a video of that that's going to go up on the cooking channel there. But already, looking at it, it's not like we missed this many berries. Holy crow. Seriously, man, if you can find, what are they, service berries, June berries, Saskatoon berries, obviously. But they have a lot of different names for these things. They're incredibly productive. We do like nothing to maintenance this, and its cup overfloweth. But I was distracted by the robin. We're supposed to be looking at peppers. Now I have a handful of Saskatoon berries. I mean, score for me, but it doesn't help you much, does it? Gonna have a seat on the railroad ties and get up close and personal with the El Oro today. There are huge numbers of these peppers. More and more of them are starting to face downward. Got a pretty decent size on it. I don't think that is fully the size that I got to with last year's peppers, but I think it's pretty close. Which to me says I'm going to need to be watching this a lot more carefully and be on top of its water a whole lot better. I gave it one heck of a drink last night. Again, it was just rainwater. I didn't mix up proper nutrients yet. I am the laziest gardener in the world. That's why I like aquaponics. The fish do a lot of that nutrient mixing for me, you know. Them and the natural bacteria. So I've got a lot of these older leaves that are yellowing and dying. I'm not at all concerned about that though. So I'm still getting brand new flowers setting off brand new baby peppers. There's another one right there. Fresh little one there. And this thing is just absolutely loaded. So fantastic. I was desperate for this to produce some good solid pepper numbers for me, so that I could get some good pepper seeds, return them back to the community where I was gifted them from in the first place. And it really, really looks like I'm going to be able to do that. Now it's interesting, speaking of where I was gifted the seeds from, these seeds came to me from Lloyd, much love and greatly appreciated. And we've been chatting back and forth just about how productive this particular plant is. And it is clearly pretty productive, y'all. Like, there are some we can't even see from this angle. But what he was mentioning was that they do take forever to ripen. So that's going to be really interesting. I hope it does well transitioning into the basement, and therefore I can get some truly ripened on the plant. The indigo roses taught me that is always the best way to go with these things. So yeah, very, very hopeful there. But even as I sit here looking at it through the camera, I can see so many brand new flowers and brand new tiny peppers on there. Oh my goodness. Definitely going to need some sort of a fertilizer boost in that. Probably soon. But we'll wait and see. Then the ahi calabaza behind it there. And then we've got some peppers of shame behind that. But yes, we'll take a look at the calabaza, which has some peppers for us. So that is exciting. I see 2, I see 3. I see at least 3. Oh, 4 if you count that baby one. Some nice new flowers, some open flowers. Excellent height to it. Looks like a good strong plant. We're still seeing excellent growth from those lower branches. So I think it's going to try and put out another batch of peppers for me. We'll see if it's got time. But again, this is one of the ones, whoopsie. Again, this is one of the ones that I'd like to put downstairs. Got a nest of crows in a nearby tree. Very protective parents. That's how it goes, or how it crows, I should say. Really nothing too impressive to report with that old sand dollar pepper, other than it's still alive after all these years. Not seeing any flowers popping off on there. I'm not seeing any fruit. A few weeds popping up from the soil. But that's about it. So, yes. Oh well. At its age, it can get away with being a decorative pepper for a season. I'm totally okay with that. Besides, the El Oro de Ecuador is more than making up for it. And the Saskatoons are putting in for everybody in the yard, so, oh yeah. Alright everybody, well I know we didn't go down into the dungeon and check out the aquaponic garden, but we'll be doing that on Wednesday anyway. It's getting a little bit later on this end. I do want to try and get this up at a semi-reasonable time today. So I think this is where we're going to call it an end. So, yes. Tomorrow being Monday, I will be running around here. I may or may not post a video. I have no idea. Plus there are activities potentially going on the other channels, so I'm not going to commit one way or another, but yes, Monday may no longer be a day off for me. I just, I'm no good with time to myself. I get bored, you know. What do you do? What do you do? So, alright, I may or may not see you tomorrow, and I will definitely see you Tuesday. Take care, everybody.